Hello everybody, Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelorette Recap, a guy's review. As you all know, we've been covering some Bachelorette Nation news regarding Chris Harrison's departure from the franchise. It's been reported last Monday evening that Chris Harrison was part of an eight-figure settlement. Somewhere between $20 to $69 million was the estimation of what he was paid to essentially go away and be quiet. Some people have asked, is this extortion? No, look, here's how it works. He could have decided not to take a payout and maybe write a tell-all book. Maybe they would sue him. Maybe then he would get dragged through the mud and then their people would release some negative PR against him. Mutually assured destruction, which we all talked about. Two different nuclear warheads pointed at each other. Rather than that, Chris Harrison hires Brian Friedman, who, let me check, power attorney, to basically get as much as he can on the way out the door. That's what you do. You know what I mean? You know, fill your pockets, get whatever you can. And I'll read some of your comments about what you thought about this scenario. Some people defending Chris Harrison, some people not. I mean, it's a real litmus test to where people are with their form of critical thinking and how they're reading the story. Very smart people on both sides of this story say, well, look, I mean, what he did was really nothing worse, but there's microaggressions, and it's not what he said, but it's how he said it. It's complicated, guys. It's complicated. Most people's opinions won't change, but I will not let anybody whittle down my 25-minute videos into a one paragraph sort of, I don't know, comparison to what I think about the situation. I think it's very complicated, and I respect that whatever my point of view might be isn't the be-all, end-all of how other people should react. So let's jump right into the article here. You know what? First of all, I'd really love to hit 34,000 subscribers today. We're at 33,926 as I record this. So please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Get me to 34. It's a fun number. Let's get out of here on a good note on a Friday. So anyway, let's go back to this. Elizabeth Wagmeister from Variety has been covering, I think, the best coverage of all of the Bachelor Nation topics. My feeling is, you know, I look at Variety as like the last bastion of maybe proper journalism, and I never thought of this until I saw how she conducted her interview with Colton Underwood, and I got to give her a lot of credit. I mean, it looked like an actual journalist conducting an interview versus every other gossip rag, which just looks like a lot of fireworks and Yosemite Sam just shooting guns in the air. Yeehaw, yeehaw, code words, algorithms boost, SEO, SEO. Where she was like actually pressing and asking questions. So I can only imagine like her boss saw the numbers of like how many views her articles were getting regarding Bachelor Nation, and the boss probably just cleared out the desk and was like, everything else out of the way, you're in charge of Bachelor Nation. And now she's like, yes, sir. And she's just ready to go. She's got a big cigar. You know, that's how I imagine newsrooms. Well, my newsroom over here is really just reading her article. So let's get into it. Elizabeth Wagmeister, she said, inside Chris Harrison's shocking downfall as the Bachelor host and a $9 million payout. Well, we thought it was $20 to $69 million. Now we're finding out it's only $9 million. Chump change. How's he going to afford lunch? You know what I mean? It's a little bit more than that, so let's read this. And again, after I read this article, I'm going to share some comments you guys left that are pretty interesting, and they are different than how I'm thinking about it all. And that's part of having these discussions, that we don't just go, no, it's this way or you're racist. It's this way or you're just this, or you can't think this way because no. We'll have the discussion. I'm willing to ask some stupid questions in order to get to a smarter answer, and I think we should all be in that place too. On February 9th, everything changed for Chris Harrison. The affable, controversy-free host of The Bachelor sat down with former Bachelorette star Rachel Lindsay on Extra. When asked a simple question about Bachelor winner Rachel Kirkconnell, whose former plantation party photos resurfaced on social media, Harrison went to great lengths to defend the racially insensitive, controversial contestant in a long-winded exchange. As the situation exploded in backlash over social media, that interview was the beginning of a domino effect that would ultimately derail the veteran host's 19-year tenure with the ABC franchise. Now, it's easy to sort of summarize how the interview went down, and I'll be honest, I'm not rewatching it, but there's I know the Instagram account Bachelor Data won't do this, but it would be very interesting if they actually broke down how many words he said versus how many words she said, how many times he interrupted her, just to actually see where the pin is, because we've all kind of watched this and taken we've sort of giving it a mind of its own. So let me just read a comment. It's from Justin Owens. I don't know who Justin is. Just a random comment. We get hundreds of these. Some I get a chance to respond to, some I don't. But this is a comment in defense of Chris Harrison. We all know all the comments that are against or that are pro-canceling Chris Harrison, but here's a defense of Chris Harrison. Of course, this is from a man. I can't assume what his ethnicity is, but just because you might feel this way, that the conversation went one way, doesn't mean someone else can't see it as going sideways, but nonetheless, let's hear what he had to say. I feel like the whole bit about Chris Harrison not showing grace to Rachel Lindsay and his being rude and talking over her is just being intellectually dishonest. It's an interview with Chris Harrison. People are not watching the interview to hear Rachel Lindsay speak. It's pretty customary to give the floor to the guest. It was a 14-minute interview with plenty of back and forth. He did not dominate the segment. This is where I would love to see the breakdown of like how much back and forth happened, how many times, total on-air speaking, just because that's kind of what it all comes down to, right? This entire woke take on the matter actually portrays Rachel Lindsay as a weak black woman. In that, of course, I would disagree with, because that's a leap to summarize that, who can't handle herself in a conversation with a white man about race. That Chris Harrison should check his whiteness and walk on eggshells around a black woman as to not be unintentionally insensitive when answering questions asked by said black woman, that he shouldn't treat her as an equal because she is black. I think he's taking a leap with that third part. So I think at that part, it's kind of like, well, you're making an assumption, and we're trying to get away from assumptions when we talk about this, because the more assumptions you make, we know how that goes. According to that White Fragility book, the only thing Chris Harrison did right was not cry in the presence of Rachel Lindsay. Well, okay, so, there are points there with the fact that, does Rachel Lindsay, as the interviewer, isn't it her job to get as much info from the interviewee? But we also know this is not like your typical 60-minute interview. This is kind of mixed, because on one hand, Rachel Lindsay is working for extra, but on the other hand, Chris Harrison also is kind of her boss at the same time, because she's still under contract with Bachelor Nation. This is where it gets complicated, you know what I mean? But I wanted to share a point of view that was not what you're reading within the Variety article. The strangest thing about the entire situation, Harrison was never asked to participate in the extra interview. Multiple insiders tell Variety that Harrison participated in the interview on his own volition, but was never requested by a network or studio publicist to sit down for the press opportunity. When Lindsay asked a par-for-the-course question about Kirk Connell, the extra correspondent did not push Harrison to elaborate, and she wasn't expecting Harrison to dive in, but he did head first and with a crash landing. I would agree with that. Rachel Lindsay, it wasn't a gotcha interview. It wasn't an interview that was meant to sort of trap Chris Harrison, not in the least. The following story is the result of interviews with numerous people familiar with what happened behind the scenes leading up to Harrison's departure. All the individuals who spoke to Variety did so under the condition of anonymity, either because they still work with the Bachelor franchise or because they are too closely associated to situations surrounding Harrison. But through their accounts, what becomes clear is that even after the veteran host's tone-deaf commentary, the entire situation was completely repairable and avoidable. Completely repairable and avoidable. Okay, so I'm always hesitant when a news organization says that, under conditions of anonymity. I understand you can't put the name of your sources down, and I'm just trusting that Variety is one of the last bastions of journalism that's actually got multiple sources and vetted sources. As we know with the Colton Underwood story, that they had a source that about Colton Underwood's blackmail story, but having already lied, it's like, who do we even trust anymore? You know what I mean? It's not like it's crazy to think that people are making things up after already, been lying. Again, that refers to the Colton Underwood story, not necessarily this. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're following all journalistic practices. And what world does a comedian in 2021 have to question journalists? But this is the world we live in. ABC and Warner Brothers declined to comment for the story. Harrison's legal representatives also declined to comment, and his agents never responded to Variety requests for comment. Contrary to previous press reports, Variety has learned that Harrison's exit package was not a significant 8-figure payout. Instead, he received roughly $10 million, which would be the lowest of 8-figure payouts, right? That's the first 8-figure number. A combination of a $9 million exit settlement plus remaining contractual fees upon leaving the job he held since 2002. Now, I'm surprised he doesn't have any producer equity points where he's making money on all future episodes of the show. Like when you create a show, even in a lot of cases, even if you sell the show, you'll still get a percentage of revenue moving forward because it's you created that. So I'm surprised if he was kind of just a pay to play employee and he's not doesn't have stock in the company. So what really happened after the extra interview aired? Lindsay was stunned by Harrison's response and was expecting a canned response. The interview lasted 14 minutes. She felt she could not get a word in. Lindsay declined to comment for this article, but speaking on her Higher Learning podcast, she confirmed that no publicist accompanied Harrison during the interview and said that he talked over at me. Lindsay recalled, he wasn't trying to hear it. He was just trying to be heard. Maybe in that part of the interview that is correct, but for Elizabeth Wagmeister to sort of conflate that 14-minute interview to saying Rachel Lindsay could not get a word in, how do we know that is the case when we didn't interview Rachel Lindsay for this podcast? Or for this article. After the interview hit the internet, the call for Harrison's job were immediate. Social media blowing up. Okay, so everything went crazy. According to a small handful of people familiar with the situation, Harrison was not aware of how much attention his response was receiving. It did not realize just how problematic the television interview would become. Yeah, could you imagine that? Chris Harrison's like on the golf course. He has his phone turned off. Then all of a sudden his agent's like, you got to come into the office. He's like, no, come on. It's a Saturday. We're done. And he's like, no. Go put a nice suit on. We got work to do. On her podcast in February, Lindsay said that Harrison had no problems with the interview and texted her saying that he appreciated the conversation. I actually look at that last line as sort of a defense to pleading ignorance as an excuse to do better, okay? Now, if Chris Harrison didn't think the interview was a problem at all, hey, we were just friends, we had a friendly conversation, that's a good place to start with your apology by then saying, oh my gosh, look, I'm not going to lie when I said I had no idea. It's like if I'm in a fight with my fiance. Honey, I had no idea that was going to bother you when I liked your sister's bikini photo on Instagram. I'm kidding. That didn't happen. You know what I mean? That'd be a real ignorant thing to do. But that's better than saying, something that's way more sinister. Like if Chris Harrison was like, well, I thought I would just drum up some, drama for ratings. Then it's like, oh, so now you're going to be race baiting for ratings. But instead he's like, I had no idea. I called you. I thought we were completely fine. I had no clue. So this comment, let's read here, from an audience member from last video. Mara says, I loved this video. Let me pull the full comment down. I love this video. I really wish Chris Harrison wasn't iced out either. I'm a Indian, Native American, and it would have been nice to also learn with him about the topics you brought up today. I also don't know or understand what, why, or how some things are wrong to do or say and what's racist and not. It's hard to wrap my head around. I'm totally lost at this point on why all of this is happening and why it's so upsetting. Now, the sort of like hard-nosed progressive response to that would be, you don't know what's racist in 2021? And it's like, instead of shaming someone for not knowing something, appreciate someone like Mara saying, I could use this conversation. It's almost like if someone shows up to class being like, I'm ready to learn math. Okay, a squared plus b squared equals what? And the teacher's like, you don't know what a squared plus b squared equals? And you're like, d squared? They're like, come on, it's c squared. Don't you know a good old Pythagorean theorem? Whose theorem? Are you allowed to say that, teacher? But the point is like, are we trying to grow or are we not, You don't know what that is? You don't know you can't call someone angry? You can't call a black lady angry? Now I do. I know that there's history with sort of with media and like a collective community playing into this trope of the angry black women. I know that, but I also perform comedy all over the country with diverse other comedians and audience. So I hear these bits being talked out in a very diverse way. And some people, in whatever world they live in, that just might not be the conversation they're having. You know what I mean? So this was a chance for that didn't happen. How could you not know that? As soon as the interview aired, social media erupted. ABC and Warner Brothers realized they had a big problem, so we talk about all that. Harrison made his apology, and then he made his second apology. He says, I don't speak for Rachel Kirkconnell. My intentions were simply to ask for grace and offering her an opportunity to speak on her own behalf. So in his apology, he did a good job of explaining what his intentions were, which is important to say, look, I wasn't trying to dismiss Rachel Lindsay. All I was trying to do was this. And then people said, well, you dismissed Rachel Lindsay because of it. And it's kind of like how an ongoing conversation should have happened. Like if they were in person, if Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison were in person, they could have gotten very much closer to the solution rather than to Instagram statement. They could have very much gotten closer to, oh, no, I was just trying to protect Rachel Kirkconnell because I knew there was going to be X, Y, and Z that was going to come out. And Rachel Lindsay would say, yeah, but you weren't understanding the people that suffered. Oh my gosh, you're totally right. I so apologize. All these, none of that happened. None of that happened. Everyone hides behind their crisis PR. We're deeply disappointed and want to make it clear that we denounce any defense of racism. It was the cast made this social media post. So it kind of became a whose side are you on, which again is another problem in our country, that it's like we're all taking sides versus a lot of people in Chris Harrison's platform and audience that are anti-cancel culture. They should have been willing to grow with this story versus saying, no, I did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. He's perfectly fine. That's not how you treat someone over there employed for 20 years. It's like, okay, listen, clearly he did something wrong. Okay. We're not saying that he didn't do something wrong. Was the juice worth the squeeze here? And of course, in my take, which is, I've said through hours of commentary, the more I think of it, is that what's right for Chris Harrison or not, I think what's right for our community of all different diverse groups in the U.S. is to have the conversation. It's what Emmanuel Acho says. It's what, is it Eric Michael Dyson? Do I have his name right? Can't remember it all. It's what he says, counsel, not cancel. And it's the idea that it's not about just a blanket, quick forgiving of Chris Harrison. It's about conversation. It's about learning and growth. And we actually got to a point where now a lot of people that support Chris Harrison see him as a martyr, and versus seeing that he's just a sort of cog in a bigger machine in Hollywood. That is part of a problem. Emmanuel Acho was tapped to guest host after the final rose in lieu of Harrison. So we got the whole story right. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Ivan Hall said he wouldn't feel comfortable being on Bachelor in Paradise if Chris Harrison was there. And then, of course, we have Katie Thurston saying, essentially, Chris Harrison, take the season off. I'm Bachelorette. Let's just have you sit this one out. And we'll never know. We'll never know what kind of campaigns were going on their social media DMs to say, like, will they be? And again, I'm not saying Katie Thurston and Ivan Hall weren't operating from their best intentions. I'm just saying, I don't know who was messaging Michael Strahan. I don't know who's messaging them, because now we know it's not only who did the wrong thing, but it's about who's supporting the thing you want to be supported. And then there's like campaigns happening behind the scenes to say, like, look, we're not going to support Katie Thurston unless you denounce Chris Harrison. I'm sure this is happening. I know this is happening because this is where we are with the culture we live in, about where and again, I fully support like the idea of voting with your dollar. So if you don't want to see Chris Harrison on your camera and you reach out to people that have the choice to make that happen, that's your right to do. That's your right to do. And I embrace that. It doesn't mean that I think we're always choosing the right solution, because some people would rather see Chris Harrison made an example of, and I think the example is learning and growth. That's just me, folks. But then again, people will say, as I've talked till I got blue in the face, people will say Chris Harrison didn't do what he needed to do in his apology, and I'm just not good at reading tone. So here's what went down. After the interview with Good Morning America, Michael Strahan, again, I know we've talked about this a bunch, but there is a lot of new information in this article. It's very specific. After the interview wrapped, Michael Strahan, live on television, said his apology is his apology, but it felt like I got nothing more than a surface response on any of this. And obviously, he's a man who wants to clearly stay on the show, but only time will tell if there's any meaning behind his words. Strahan's off-the-cuff response was immediately praised on social media. Some people had asked me if this was in the telestrator, like the teleprompter, like was this approved by the producers? Did ABC, along with Good Morning America, have an agenda and then Michael Strahan went off the agenda? No idea. No idea there. But I will say, how are we to know what Chris Harrison was going through? Maybe he's got all of his talking points written down on a poster, and he's stoic, and he's trying to stay on point. He's not trying to show too much emotion, because we know if he got really emotional, he would be called fraudulent there. He's not angry. He's not fighting for his life in an energetic way. He's just stoically saying that he's sorry. I don't know how to judge that. I don't know him that well. Unless someone's like a close friend or family member of mine, I can't judge their tone. At that point, we're just kind of like, we're not accepting apologies because we decide that we're looking at it from a place of cynicism. And I don't know if that's a good place to be. I don't know. Leave a comment and let me know what you think. I mean, I understand like if your partner cheats on you and they're apologizing and it just feels flat. I get that. But I don't know how Michael Strahan through a video conference understands if Chris Harrison is being genuine or not. I just don't know. Harrison, likely expected a softball interview as the face of the network's top-rated reality franchise, was angered by the disastrous outcome, and so were Bachelor executives who were perplexed by Harrison's rigid on-air performance, which came off disingenuous. Again, Elizabeth Wagmeister, the writer of this article, says that Chris Harrison was angry by the disastrous outcome. And I just have to question, if you didn't interview him, if you didn't interview his inner circle, how do you know this? And don't get me wrong, I'm sure Chris Harrison was angered by the disastrous outcome, but we still have to question like the paraphrasing of how it all went down. At that point, it became clear that Harrison would need to take a longer time out, but the franchise was still planning on eventually bringing him back. At the request of Bachelor executives, Harrison contacted a handful of former cast members to mixed results, which Variety has confirmed through multiple sources. Okay, that I believe. General response from BIPOC cast members that Harrison had called or texted was informing him that his apology would be accepted, but he would need to put in the work to educate himself before he'd be welcomed back with open arms. Okay, so the people in his camp accepted his apology. As all of this was brewing, there was another major roadblock for Harrison in March. Okay, we talked about that. Katie Thurston refused to star in her season if Harrison was lost. It refused to star in her season. She said, "I stand with other alumni who have expressed that learning and growth require time. I hope that Chris Harrison continues to take more time to step away while sincerely educating himself and dedicating himself to the work. We can all grow and do better with time, and I hope he does." Part of me feels, and I love Katie Thurston here, but part of me feels that by telling someone they need to step away and take time, you're dictating how they're going to go about making things better. And if I'm Chris Harrison, I think the mistake that he made is a lot of people are like, be quiet, go away, just shush. And he did that, and now people are saying, "Where's the work?" And he's, "The work? What do you mean? I thought that PR, crisis PR, the thing that they always tell you is like, go away, just go away, let things die down." That's what they wanted Rachel Kirkconnell to do. It didn't work. That's what I'm assuming they gave advice to Chris Harrison to do. Go play some golf. Don't talk. Go radio silence on your media. Let it die down, and then we'll issue an apology. While he was doing all of that, they were replacing him on the show because it didn't die down. In hindsight, he probably should have gone on as many podcasts and had long-form conversations about it as much as he could talk about. That's the work. Talking it out as you discuss why you didn't consider Rachel Lindsay's side of things. Talking it out and just explaining where you were coming from. That's how you build empathy with the people that go, "Dude, how could you have messed this up?" Well, I'm in these boardrooms with guys, we're yelling at each other all days long. Now I understand why that's a problem. Now I understand why I brought that toxic energy into a conversation that didn't need it with someone who would technically be like an employee of mine in a way at Bachelor. All of these things didn't happen. So people are left putting the pieces together like some sad, amazing race puzzle, and they're just trying, and it got completely botched. So I think the work could have been done simultaneously from everything else that was going on in the public sphere. Maybe he was afraid of getting sued by Bachelor Producers, but it's like, what, are you going to sue me for trying to make a situation right, for trying to mend some broken things? No, come on. Insiders close to Harrison said that the veteran host deeply cared about Bachelor Nation and loved his job. The entire situation took a toll on him, and he always planned on returning. His commitment to the franchise never wavered. Eventually, Harrison's desire to return to Bachelor was overshadowed by the mess behind the scenes between his team and the network. Harrison retained power attorney Brian Friedman, who had recently represented Gabrielle Union in her dispute against America's Got Talent and negotiated a mega million payout for Megyn Kelly. Oh, he was part of the Megyn Kelly thing. Now, Megyn Kelly was like, how come you can't put makeup on if you want to be Diana Ross for Halloween? Now, that's, first of all, dumb question by Megyn Kelly, dumb take, but do you get fired for asking dumb questions? In 2018, you do. Or 2019, she got fired with something like a $50 million settlement. And it was a dumb question, but, that's what they hired her for, so NBC got what they paid for. They got somebody who asks controversial questions on network TV. That's what she does. They knew it. She lived up to what they were asking for, and then they fired her when that all went down. So then we got Bachelor creator Mike Fleiss' wife had a domestic violence allegation. So he represented Mike Fleiss' wife. So Brian Freeman also represented Cassie Randolph. So he's represented all sides of Bachelor Nation. And boy, the only winner in this is the powerful attorney at law, Brian Friedman. Boy, he has made some cheddar. He's probably got lactose intolerance from all the cheddar. Harrison's attorney was outraged by the dragging out process. Oh yeah, because he knew it. The longer this goes on, the less money that Chris Harrison's going to be able to get. Once people see that Tayshia and anyone with a pulse can do the job of the host, he's going to realize the show's going to move on without him, and his value is going to go down. So that's why they had the Event Horizon Monday night. Get the deal done now, or we go forward with all the info we have on the show, which has been rumored that a lot of the info that Chris Harrison has is like what drugs were being done overseas during the during the episodes when they would travel abroad and other things like the domestic abuse. Real damning information. Once production on Thurston's season of The Bachelorette began, things started to unravel further. While Harrison's attorney was putting up a tough fight representing his client against the network in studio, Harrison was still under the impression he could make a comeback for the season. An insider close to production reveals that after cast and crew had already been sent to New Mexico to quarantine for Bachelorette, Harrison was essentially knocking on the door asking to salvage his job by making calls to various people on set, begging them to put in a good word for him. Wow, I mean, everyone now, okay, so the whole narrative that was like, well, maybe Chris Harrison didn't want to come back. He's making phone calls to the sound guy, I'm imagining, saying, can you let them know at lunch that I want my job back? I mean, this is what you do when you're a production assistant trying to get work. Trust me, I've been there. In early June, Variety published a report that Harrison would not be returning to host Bachelor in Paradise. They were going to use a celebrity host. Particular article about Bachelor in Paradise set off Harrison and his inner circle and ended up expediting the end game for all parties. So, as soon as he realized they were just going to be casting anyone and their mother to do his job, he was like, okay, this is not looking good for me. They originally told me to take some time, and I did that, and now this is happening. No, it's not looking good for me. Within a matter of days, Harrison had reached a legal agreement to depart the franchise on his own accord. Part of the agreement Harrison signed included the public statement of an amicable parting of ways, which is typical in most high-profile Hollywood departures. Yep, so it's just passing off the baton. Oh, I love them, thanks so much, and then they cut the cameras, and he's like, man, F that, whatever. So I'd love to know what Lauren Zima has to say about it, because I'm sure she's getting an earful. Despite previous reports, Harrison did not walk away with a substantial 8-figure payout. Two individuals familiar with the negotiations say that the host got $9 million plus remaining contractual fees, which brought his total exit package to roughly $10 million, about the same paycheck he would have made from 2 years of work, as his contract was said to be around $5 million per year. So this is one of those things where people go, dude, that's great, $10 million. But then you go, listen, if this show goes on for 6 more years, you're talking about losing out on $20 more million. You know what I mean? Like, everyone goes, wow, that's a crazy amount of money. Trust me when I say Brian Friedman, power attorney, his agents, his managers, I don't know, his ex-wife, his kids in college. I'm not saying it's not good money. I'm not saying that. But when you live at that certain threshold, he's unemployed, guys. And again, I'm not saying feel bad for him. I'm just saying to think that it's a crazy amount of money. Maybe it is in your circle. Maybe it is in mine. Join the Patreon. But it's not FU money by any means. While Harrison's sugar-coated announcement of his departure appears to be harmonious, at a closer look, the former host fails to thank the studio or network while making sure to extend his gratitude to the fans. So he clearly did what was contractually he was obligated to do to get that direct deposit. He didn't go any farther. I've had a truly incredible run as host of the Bachelor franchise, and now I'm excited to start a new chapter, Harrison said in a statement last week. I'm so grateful to Bachelor Nation for all of the memories we've made together. While my 2-decade journey is wrapping up, the friendships I've made will last a lifetime. All right, well, that was a pretty well-written article by Elizabeth Wagmeister, very in-depth, a ton to comment therein. Obviously, it's a 30-minute video here. So let me know what you guys think. Keep it respectful, and please don't conflate 29 minutes of me talking to one side or the other. It's complicated, but in the end, I'd rather talk it out than just say somebody was wrong, so we're never going to hear from them again. I think the counsel and the communication with everyone who just doesn't get it yet is important. I think my audience understands that, and we've grown from that, but at the same time, there's people that are going to just take that first viewpoint you have, treat it as confirmation bias that I'm against them or I'm pro them, and it's just not that easy, guys. It's not that easy. If you like this content and you want to support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/Dave Neal. I have a new Motivational Friday video up. If you're looking to take a leap of faith, you got to watch this video. I also go over how the dog's doing after our sort of dangerous last week or so when we had to take the dog to the emergency vet for surgery and all that jazz. You can check that out there. And also, I've got a new vlog up called A Full Home Tour. My fiance and I did a full tour of our brand brand new home. Thank you guys so much for all of the well wishes you gave us. That's on my vlog channel. And that's it, folks. So again, I really appreciate everyone who's been here for this journey of ours. I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to think critically about this situation and not just talk about what side you're on. If you're saying, I'm on just this side or I'm on just that side, I don't want to hear from it. I mean, it's more complicated than that. But in the end, we're going to have those tough conversations and we're going to try to grow. And all we can do, I'll say this to wrap this up on a Friday, all we can do is apply that empathy that we might not find in this story. Apply that to your life. Apply that to all the people you interact with. Let's just take care of our small communities. Let's take care of those that we can physically reach, those that we can physically be a part of, and let's look out for each other. Let's listen to people that are giving cries of help. Let's just try to elevate each other, and maybe, just maybe, we'll stitch together a little unity in our country and get to a place where we see each other as equals and not better than or worse than. All right, folks, let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. More content to come. Bye now.